Good morning. So I had a question on one of our How to Survey videos about the external walls of property. And the question was, what do we do when what do we do specifically to the brick headers when they start to get porous, when there's moisture and when there's thermal bridging? So what I think I'd do, or what I thought I'd do, completely off the cuff, is just to explain a little bit more how a solid wall works. So if we was to build a Victorian solid wall, so that'd be the outside and that would be the inside, we would have a brick laid across that way, 2 bricks that way, a brick that way, 2 bricks that way, and it would repeat. On the course directly above or below, lining up, so the centre of our stretchers, we would have our header, and then 2 stretchers side by side and then a header, 2 stretchers side by side and then a header. So what this would look like in terms of the actual finished brickwork, rubber's not brilliant, is we would have a bed joint, bed joint, bed joint, bed joint. We would have a header, then a stretcher, and then a header, and then a stretcher. Directly below that, the header would be there, stretcher, header, then a stretcher. And then directly below that, it would line up with the course above. This is really common in solid wall properties, Victorian. Virtually every house in London will be built like this, and in most cities as well, 1850 to 1900s or so. It's called Flemish bond, really, really common, and it's for solid brick walls. So our issues then become as to how that solid wall is maintained. So if we then think of our wall that's this thick, and we've got our bed joints there right the way through. Doesn't matter about the orientation of the bricks, whether we've got headers or stretchers. So the rain will soak the outer face of the wall, which over the period of damp weather, the outer third to a half or so of the wall will become saturated. During periods of drier weather, the water in the wall will evaporate out of the brick joints. The brick joint should always be softer than the brickwork, and traditionally these were lime, so the brick joints would be a 1 to 3 lime mix and the bricks would be clay. So that works for a long period of time without any issues. Unfortunately, someone then comes along, repoints the outer skin of the wall with a cement mortar pointing, and in some cases this can look absolutely hideous, like this photo here. You can see that they've made all the joints proud. It's a hard cement mortar pointing. It looks absolutely hideous in my view. So what happens now is the moisture still soaks into the wall, but it can't evaporate out the joints anymore because the joints are now harder than the face of the brick. So what happens now is the moisture evaporates as much as it can out the face of the brick. Not being so porous as the softer lime joints, water will also start to penetrate into the property. 2 things will happen here. Generally for maybe 11.5 months of the year, it's not going to be a significant issue. But when it freezes, rather than these little areas here freezing and popping off, we've now got a lot of moisture in the face of the brick. So you can get the face of the bricks spalling, and basically the water inside freezes, expands and pushes the face of the brick off. So you can get really poor quality bricks. We can see in this photo here, there's a good example of brickwork spalling because the joints have been replaced in mortar, in a cement mortar. Now, the second issue then is the water can't evaporate quite so easy, so it starts to go into the property, causing a damp issue inside. And then this starts a whole ball rolling of people sticking a pin probe in the wall saying, yep, you've got rising damp and we need a chemical damp proof course. You don't, quite often something like this would be in this scenario, be as simple as repoint it using a lime mix. So the brickwork is designed to get wet and it's designed to get dry, and it should be porous. So in terms of the question that was asked about what do we do when it gets wet? Well, it's going to get wet, it's outside, so that's a good thing because the inside should be dry, keeping your property dry. What about when the bricks get porous? The bricks should be porous because that allows the moisture vapor transfer through the bricks to occur. What was the other question? And thermal bridging. Well, if we go back to our sketch where we had our solid wall, so plaster on the inside and rainwater hitting the outside of the wall, it's a solid wall. There kind of is no thermal bridging because the whole wall is thermal bridging. To appreciate thermal bridging, or maybe to understand it a bit more, let's look at a cavity wall. So plaster on the inside, blockwork, inner skin, cavity, brickwork, outer skin, clear gap between the two. That blockwork will be at similar condition temperature wise to the inside of the property. The brickwork will be at a similar temperature to the outside of the property. And hopefully, or there might be some insulation in the middle of the property, in the middle of the cavity to keep it warm. Now, various cases where thermal bridging can occur. Now let's consider a wall tie that crosses the two, ties the two skins together. Probably have a little drip in the middle. That shouldn't be a problem at all. But during construction, you might get some mortar snots building up on the wall tie that do that. What that enables is a thermal bridge across the property. Another good example of thermal bridging would be where cavities close. So you'd have a cavity wall there, outer skin of brickwork, and the old way of doing it was to turn the blockwork in, put a DPC there, window sits in there, you've got a thermal bridge going right the way across the property. Nowadays, that isn't the case. What we do is you build two completely separate skins of wall. They are tied together with wall ties, but where they're finished around the wall, so around the window openings, there will be something called a thermobate or a cavity closer there. So that's insulated plastic, fixes to the inner skin of blockwork, has these little T-things on it so that plaster can adhere to it. Wall ties tie the whole thing together. Now there's no possibility of thermal bridging because we've got insulation in the middle. So I hope that gives a bit of an intro as to thermal bridging, damp and moisture in solid walls. Any questions, leave them in the comments and we'll answer them either as an answer or perhaps like this, do a quick video. Thank you very much.